I had always thought dogs to be playful and spirited. To me, they were the animals who loved to chase sticks and romp around and lick you. That is, I used to think that, until the day I met the serious dogs. When I first saw the serious dogs, they were sitting on a small hill out to the side of my house watching the sunset. One dog was standing on his hind legs, leaning his elbow on a tree, lost in melancholy thought. They all watched this spectacularly glorious sunset, then each sighed in turn and strolled in a pack over the hill. Were these the dogs I had thrown bones to for the last several months? These daydreamers? Several days later, I saw the serious dogs lunching under the willow. They were not gulping their food down like Spritzy does. They seemed almost refined. After dining, they buried their trash, cleaned themselves up, and disappeared over the horizon. I waited about half an hour and then took my shovel over to that willow and dug up what they had buried there. Several wrappers of cheese, some half-eaten doggy biscuits, and, good Lord, 2 empty bottles of fairly expensive Bordeaux. I turned, confused, and saw a small pamphlet lying on the ground. I picked it up and read the title, Federal Migratory Waterfowl Stamps. Well, I thought, some poor stamp collector left his book here just then. One of the serious dogs appeared and gently took the volume from my hands and padded off. I stopped. This was something more than just some dogs who didn't like to play fetch. I decided to secretly follow this dog. I laid about 100 yards back, and I watched him. I was impressed with his courtesy to other animals and his compulsion to leave his pathway neat. If a branch had fallen over, he would right it. If leaves had blown over the trail, he would brush them back onto less traveled ground. When I saw him crawl through an opening in some thick brush, as I approached, I could hear the sounds of other dogs moving lightly. I moved towards the opening and cautiously peered through. I could see a few dogs staring intently at something, as though studying it. I could not make out exactly what it was, so I moved closer. I was sure not to make my presence known. As I parted some of the branches in the brush, I saw the most incredible sight, a fully constructed skeleton of a cow. The construction was crude, to be sure, but missing only the head and feet, it was well formed and highly commendable. I remember throwing them bones now and then, and I could recall several of the dogs seemingly analyzing it before accepting. I looked along the ground and saw several of my books I had thrown out months before. They were well kept and stored upright. Most were referenced, but I recognized several of the better novels. Then I noticed some dogs all facing something and sniffing judiciously, like connoisseurs would sniff some wine. I could not make out what they were looking at, as the bush blocked my line of sight. I moved ever so slowly through the underbrush, with such caution that it took me a full 10 minutes to travel 5 feet. Then, with some trepidation, I lifted my eyes at the object of the dog's curiosity and saw, my God, the lost Monet.